And we are back with James Albury with a few questions from our readers about what you do. One of them was, you mentioned audience participation earlier. How does that work? Can you actually deal with an audience live while you're streaming?
Yeah. That's sort of like if you look at BBC News or Sky News or something, they have their red button. They call that interactivity. Right. With live streaming, there's if people are watching from my source page, which is thebambuser.com/channel/AlburyJ, it gets mirrored a lot. And that's where people basically embed the feed on other pages. If people are watching via that, I can't see what they're typing in the chat box. But if they're watching directly from my Bambuser page and they type in the chat box there, what they're typing pops up on my screen. So at times when it's really busy, it will just move too fast for me to be able to respond to absolutely everything. And sometimes stuff isn't actually for me anyway. It's just people chatting amongst themselves about what they're watching. But yeah, if people communicate, one of the really great things about it is like, hey, can you get an interview with that person over there, or can you try and get a shot from that angle over there, or
can
whatever.
You zoom in on the Gestapo stamping on that dude's head?
Oh, Zoom! I wish I had a Zoom. That's sort of like one of my dreams. But but you can certainly move. Zoom is sort of like walking forwards or backwards. But yeah, audience participation is, they can be a lot more involved in the experience than just watching it on TV. It's a lot more interactive.
When you think about like that in a couple of years, it'll just be like weird. Go slap that cop, see what he does. But we were talking about sovereignty earlier, and one of our readers, Cecilia De Felice, said, "Is sovereignty always paramount? And should the world honor these national boundaries?" I was curious what both of you guys, because Nick's talked before about how he thinks that in the future passports are going to be really antiquated and outdated. And this is a very key issue, because you see Assange hiding behind one border to another border. But what do you think about that, Nick?
Well, I mean, it's so arbitrary, my dad's Greek, right? So
right.
For longest
your mother's
time,
South African.
Yeah, for the longest time I used to identify myself as like Greek, and like, it's all bullshit, dude. We're all human beings. Like you said it, everyone's my family. Wow, what was the
Todo es mi familia.
Everyone's my family.
So it's like nationalism turns into jingoism, where everyone just gets so identified with their own
look at nationalism.
clan.
Look at nationalism taken to its zenith.
The U.S.?
It's Nazi Germany.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
What is the point of that? What is the point of like? It's such an outmoded way of thinking. Like, I'm an American, or I'm a German, or I'm a Zimbabwean, that makes me special. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's my personal belief. What do you think?
Right. I'm kind of with you on that. It's kind of like a moot point. I think in the existing paradigm, then sovereignty needs to be respected. For instance, with the Ecuadorian embassy, I think it would have been completely wrong for the UK authorities to have breached that in the existing paradigm. But
is he abusing the system a little bit? I'm going to jump over this line and you can't touch me, and I'm going to jump over that line and you can. I
mean, there's some that could argue that, but
because he interviewed the Ecuadorian embassy on a Russia Today sequence, and apparently that's how they met the president of Ecuador, and then all of a sudden he had this opportunity to go there. So anyway,
when he do what he did, he's embarrassed governments all over the world, and that is going to make you a target. So the old expression, it's not paranoia if they're really out to get you. They very well might be after him. I can see why that certainly is a possibility. But it's also a possibility that he might know in his own mind that he is guilty, and it's his way of avoiding it. I don't know. I'm not inside his head. It's just.
I think on this issue, everyone lives in a little bit of a dream world. And when we go back to a global conflict like World War II, then sovereignty will mean a ton. And I mean, I'm guilty. I'm a dual citizen, with the U.S. and UK. And while I enjoy that status, it really makes me wonder, if I got drafted by both entities, what does citizenship truly mean? Does it mean that I really have to make a choice between one or the other, or I can't call myself a citizen, really? What is that? So I don't know. I still think it's ultimately going to be a very core necessity, but maybe I'm still believing we're going to be cavemen.
It's the idealist in me that wants to believe that if they dissolved all national boundaries, that it would all be this one happy family hugging each other. That's not going to happen, right? I mean, it might happen in 2,000 years when we've developed some new empathetic capacity, or we've evolved spiritually. I'm not sure. But at the same time, look how many horrible things have been done throughout history in the name of government. Think how many 18-year-old kids have signed up to go and die in Vietnam for their country. It's just, the whole thing to me is just, I don't know, I have an inherent mistrust of governments. I don't know where that came from, but I don't think they have our best interests at heart.
But regional conflict, if you look over the last 5,000 years, it's a
given.
Given,
Right?
yeah.
Don't have the answers, right?
Well, yeah, I'm like you. I'm an internationalist. I think, you know, you look at a picture of the Earth from space. There doesn't seem to be any funny little lines like borders written on it. They're completely arbitrary. They've changed so much over time, and you know they'll probably continue to change. But I think the only thing that could maybe get us out of that kind of like mindset is a great big rock from space headed towards us or something like that. And if we spotted it in enough time to possibly work out some kind of technological solution to it, that's something that might unite humanity and get us to realise that, you know, whether you're black, white, brown, yellow, pink, purple, green with blue spots, whatever, we're basically all the same.
But the great big rock is here already, man, and it is impending ecological disaster. And it sure as fuck hasn't made us all band together. I mean,
I think it's because it's sort of like it's indeterminate. I mean, like, well, we're going into a whole other subject with climate change, but if you've got more questions, because that could take me about 10 minutes on that.
I don't know if we'll go there, but it's a good point. But that rock, we will answer that question. That rock did hit Manhattan after 9/11, and it was like this almost unifying force in this island of Manhattan that got really perverse with people flying flags and stuff, because I was there. And then, of course, it died off, you know, as like a unifying power. Not that that was a very good unifying power in the term of an asteroid, or we could all just drink a lot of ayahuasca.
or you could tell me, besides abolishing income tax, what you'd do if you were made president.
Abolishing income tax. I have no income these days, so I'm all for income tax. But what I would do is made president. I would give all the resources back to the world. No,
Yeah.
Fresco already took that from me. It was a great answer, by the way.
Yeah, it
I
was,
love that answer, man. And that was after an hour of interviews, and he just pulled that out of the bag. Awesome. President or world leader?
Either or, you choose.
I guess I would just say, I mean, like I said earlier about Assange, I'm glad he did what he did and it surprised you.
Let me change that question.
Okay.
Right? What do you think is the most pressing issue facing humanity right now?
Okay, I will answer that too. Like I said, I'm glad Assange did what he did, and I also think that nations need some secrecy in order to have diplomacy and be able to have some type of foreign policy, which we need. But I think that you need both, and it's like the game. It's a game that gets played. If you ever watch The Wire, there's always the drug dealers versus the cops, and the drug dealers versus the cops. And you ask the drug dealers, and they're just like, that's how the game's played, and they know it's a game, and you do this, and you go to jail, and you make your money, and you go to jail, and it goes around and around and around. And I think the same is this, as far as checks and balances and transparency, and people like James, and maybe in a weird way people like us, constantly checking these corporations, constantly checking these governments, and making sure they do what they do. And the governments are going to play the game, and they're going to have politicians with interests, and they're going to try to con the system, and we're going to have to try to get it even more transparent somehow. Is that a good answer?
Oh, it is, because
is that a cop-out answer?
You know, Tyler Durden says in one of his on one of his DVDs, he was saying one of the most important things one of the most important skills an intelligent person can develop is the ability to hold opposing viewpoints in their mind at the same time without letting those cognitive dissonances fry their circuits. And it's similar to what you've just said. You know, like, I mean, I have this ideal in my mind of what I'd like the world to be. You know, all the resources being shared equally, and this happy tree-hugging society where there's free love and all the rest. But I also know that that's not the way the world is, and I have to accept the way it is. And these two things are always tearing at me, you know, one on each side. And it's similar to what you're saying, right? Isn't it? I mean,
I think so. I just think I want to see the checks and balances go and try to get more transparent. But I don't know. Maybe that's not working.
Still didn't answer the question.
I know I didn't, did I? Well, that's very. I'm a politician.
I was going to say, you'd be a politician.
I know.
What was the question again? Like, restate it.
Which one, buddy?
What would you do if you could change one thing about the world?
If I could change one thing about the world, well, I guess that my thing is like media. So if I could somehow wave a magic wand and get this informal network, leaderless, leaderful of live streamers across the globe, all of them sort of like but none of them ready to go at any moment, and sort of like go and get the truth from the situation and bring more information to the world. That's probably what I'd go for. Not as good as Mr. Fresco's answer, I don't think. But
no, that's good.
It's one that's more personal to me. And
It's probably one that's more achievable as well.
I think anyone opposing that kind of journalism or transparency has an agenda that ultimately is below board in some way. Because if you're trying to keep information from the people, whether to run a business that's a monopoly or to get elected or to do this, if you don't want the truth to be known, then...
Just like the governments don't want Wikileaks.
Diplomacy. See, I'm a walking paradigm. Last question, and then we'll wrap this up. So one of us asked, one of our readers, our listeners, asked to ask you what you thought the reason for the degradation of journalism was. And I guess I might have to ask, do you think there's been a degradation of journalism over, say, the past 30 years? And if so, what's the reason for that?
Yes, I do think that journalism has always been a bit of a mucky business to some extent. There's always been stories there that people have had to go to underhand methods and that kind of thing to get. Sometimes it's not always been done for the right reasons.
Jack the Ripper, which happened like right around here, they reckon a lot of those stories were actually made up to sell papers. And a lot of that was just complete disinformation and misinformation just to do that. Sure. Anyways, continue. I'll cut you off again.
I think that corporate media, it's sort of like it's starting to creak. The first cracks are starting to appear in it, and that's because people are able to get so much free information from the internet. They're just kind of like not paying for it anymore. So many people are not buying newspapers. That I don't know how the Times are doing with their paywall thing, whatever, but there's so many sources of news. I think that journalistic standards, there's always been there's always been good and bad. There's always been sort of like really worthwhile good journalism. There's always been like the kind of, not always, but I think there's been an increase in the irrelevance of, you mentioned sort of like, Brad Pitt or whatever earlier. I just don't see why people are interested in, whether Jordan's just had her tits enlarged again or not. I was like,
because they've got nothing better in their lives. It's because they're inherently vacuous. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit of escapism too, I think.
I guess so. I had a girlfriend who always said, like, for her, reading Heat magazine was like...
relaxing?
It was like relaxing because she could just turn her brain off, and maybe there's something to that.
Maybe.
If you want to turn your brain off, then why not go to flotation or something like that? That's
right.
James is plugged in many ways.
Yeah. That would be, people just kind of like, this stuff gets sort of like sold, and I don't think people can be blamed for sort of like consuming really, because people are just advertised to constantly. It's just sort of like, it's constant barrage of you need this, you need that, and people are just kind of like, that they're instructed that you need to know this stuff about people whose lives have no relevance to yours whatsoever. They're told that they need to know. So, it's just, I guess it's kind of like a money thing or whatever.
Do you think in the South Pacific, those Polynesian people, there was gossip?
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. I mean...
I reckon there would have been gossip.
Do you know who just carved the new boat? Or I reckon so too, Yeah.
But there might have been less gossip because, I don't know, there might have been like a lot of free love going on and that kind of thing, so people wouldn't bat an eyelid if, somebody's got 5 wives or 5 husbands or whatever.
As we
there's less reason to gossip. Yeah.
One thing, it's along the lines of the Heat magazine discussion, which is, we walk out, if you and I walk out into the street, we will be assaulted from every direction with billboards and buses with adverts on them and posters and God knows how many different avenues of people trying to sell us something. And, I read something a long time ago, this person said, who gave these people the right to just shove all the shit in our face? Who just, because what it is, it's our own personal sovereignty that's being assaulted, right? It's our own sensory boundaries which are being attacked every day, all the time. Like if I walk through, on the way here on the tube, you'll see it when you walk through the corridor that connects the 2 lines. There's all these posters, and it's difficult to just tune them out because everything's got like a bright color or a headline or something that like catches your attention, man. It's stealing your life energy.
It's designed to. Yeah. It's designed to catch your attention.
And those people that stop you on the street, that should be criminal.
But we should shoot those people. Hey,
I mean, that
would be what you do if you're president. Right? Round up all the hippies.
I'd put them in Guantanamo. Yes.
Yeah, I want to, dude.
Dude, that should be illegal. They're invading your total mindset and your consciousness and like getting in your face. But I agree, it's the same kind of thing.
The Polynesian
As we
islanders didn't have
digress.
to deal with
Yeah,
that.
they didn't have to deal with that. That's
Yeah,
very,
that's
very
true,
true.
they didn't.
We should
All
spend some time on a Polynesian island. We should do it on the scene.
Just on the scene for 3 years.
We could have 5 wives each for 3 years.
That would
That'd
get
be cool.
that would get so old.
Would it though?
Not for you, it wouldn't.
Having one wife gets so
Think
old.
of all the yapping. I don't know. Anyways, last question. What hardware do you use?
Okay, at the moment I'm running given the pace of technology, it's a pretty old smartphone. It's a HTC Desire, Android operating system. There's loads of people that live stream with an iPhone, but I have a bit of an Apple thing. I'm kind of like, I like the open source nature of Android, we'll put it that way. Apple versus Android, we don't need to you can do a whole show about that. So I use that. Something else that's really essential is additional battery packs.
Oh yeah.
Because if you've got your mobile data going, you've got the screen on, that will chew away your battery pretty fast. You probably get 45 minutes to an hour at best. And because these things tend to go on for quite a long time, you do need some extra juice. So extra battery packs, certainly. Actually, that's one of the things that's going to be in the open source guide. There's going to be a list of sort of like absolutely essential equipment and stuff that's just sort of like really handy to have. And then there's other stuff to consider.
Awesome.
But yeah, ostensibly, the two most important things are smartphone and a battery pack.
And if everybody wanted to be equipped right now when they walk out the door tomorrow, would they download the Bamboozer app on their phone or the Ustream app on their phone, and would they be ready to go?
Well, my personal preference is for Bamboozer.
Okay.
That's because they're completely free. Like live stream is a catch-all term for live streaming, but there's also a site called Livestream, but they actually charge you to live stream from mobile locations. So for me, that's completely out. Ustream, in my view, is sort of like slightly better, but it's grown quite a lot as a platform. I mean, there's a really well-known citizen journalist in the US, Tim Pool, otherwise known as Timcast. He's done loads of coverage of Occupy and other stuff as well. He uses Ustream, and I can see why, because it's sort of like it's a big platform, but it has advertising on it. And the reason why I like Bamboozer is they do free premium accounts for citizen journalists. You just got to get in touch with them and say so.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And they have no advertising. Because the basis for their platform isn't about advertising. So it's funny, we were talking about advertising. I love it. There's no advertising. So.
Cool.
Dude, I'm going to set up a London Real account on Bamboozer.
Oh,
we
do it,
We
definitely.
can both have it on our phones, and if
Definitely.
we see some crazy shit, we'll just...
This is what I want to
stream.
encourage people to do. Just have the application on your phone. You might not ever use it. But, you know, the weirdest stuff can happen, and it'll be when you're not expecting it, and it'd be great to just sort of like be able to whip your phone up and like, boom, live streaming. And because it's all uploaded there, you know, you'll have an archive. Even if people aren't aware of it at the time, you can pretty quickly point to it later.
That's nice.
That was one of the other things with live streaming as well. I mentioned at the start of the show with the no editing. A lot of the time with the camcorder that I had, and certainly I know it's something that a lot of people really struggle with, is you get loads and loads of sort of like footage, but then it's a case of sort of like squashing it down into sort of like, you know, potentially a 3-minute YouTube clip, and it kind of like never ever gets done. The good thing about live streaming is, although the quality of like the audio and the visual isn't absolutely top notch, or not yet anyway, but you know, it'll get there. It's only a matter of time. It's just like it's up there and it's there immediately. There's you know, there's just sort of like there's no faffing around with it or anything like that. It's definitely there. You've got the information out there. That's the most important thing for a start.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to this open source guide. You know, I think that's just an awesome thing. All right, boys, that was it. A mega session. Thank you very much,
I'm going to
James.
get you that
Thank you,
question
loads.
next time.
Yeah, hit me again. Don't take no for an answer. All right, guys, be good. Peace.
Take care.
Genetically and biochemically on the inside as we are on the outside. In the last year, you know, my dad got diagnosed with stage 3B lung cancer, and you don't really come back from that, and that sucks. And that was terrifying. And I thought I was a pretty strong guy, but then